Well, that was a very, very decisive week in the NFL season. I have had to take my time. This is coming later on in the week than I usually do this show because I wanted to be extra prepared. See, I'm all suited and booted, ready to go to make sure that this top 10 list was perfect. We've got a quarterback list as well for you today. The show is starting to get a bit of a makeover here as we head into the business end of the season. And as we get into the business end of the season, as I said, I have to be dressed for the occasion because this is business right here on the NFL show. Everybody, and welcome along to Hotsport. Make sure that like buttons are being hit. Make sure that you are subscribing to Hotsport. This channel, the content is only getting better and we are getting more exposure. As Xander Kraus would put it, Anton and Hotsport is an up-and-comer. He's a riser in the game. And if you're not caught on to me at this point, what the hell are you doing? Subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. Again, make sure you hit the like button. It helps with our algorithms. Helps it so that when those people get into the YouTube and they start looking up things, that our videos pop up and we can grow and grow this channel. And I have got so much for you today. Hopefully, we don't take too long on today's program. We want to keep everyone's attention. And that is the goal of today's show. Week 11, as I mentioned, was a huge one. We had some tasty matchups. This was a week that many people thought would define the NFL. That once we got through with some of these results, that the way that we all see the NFL will begin to shape up more like the way that the NFL season could end. And that is reflected, as you'll see as a theme here, when I get to my power rankings. It's becoming less and less about how they're performing now, where I've taken the top 10 according to the algorithms, but now I've reshaped it in terms of like, who do I trust in the playoffs? But you do have to kind of mix in with how it's going in now to create like a more accurate look. And sometimes you got to break the mold. Sometimes you got to be like, look, this isn't... I know this it says this, but I don't believe it. So I have to move some of the stuff around. And yeah, look, hey. We are beginning with a new segment. We'll see if we'll do this every single week. We're going to do it now. And we're going to start because, look, shout out again. I was just mentioning Xander Kraus, my boy at Jacob Sports, and the opportunity he gives me to show up on the post-game show every single week. And Dan Cilio, both of them, I saw them, was watching yesterday. They did a quarterback list, and I'm sitting there typing away, being like, come on, this is not the right list, or this is the right list. And I sat down, and I did myself a quarterback list. So I went through all 32 quarterbacks in the NFL. I went through all of the stats. I factored in wins as well, so record. And I factored in how I believe they are, like, without the stats. Like, who do I think is the best 1 through 32 without the stats? So I put that number in there. I factored it in there. And it printed out a list. And at the end of that list, I then reshuffled it. My top 10, I reshuffled a little bit to kind of better reflect how I believe these quarterbacks are ranked throughout the season. It's a combination of how they're performing in terms as well with reputation, skill, eye test. And I'm so excited now to reveal to you, and we can go into detail as to why we went in the order, because we do have stats to back it up. And so it's a top 10 quarterback list. I'm not going to tell you. There are a few big names that didn't make the top 10 list of quarterbacks. And we will discuss them once the chips have fallen. So I want to keep you guys all in suspense. Maybe your boy makes the list, or where does your boy fall on the list for those of you who are confident that you have a top 10 quarterback. So here we go. My Anton Hot Sports top 10 quarterback list. Let's go. Cue the NFL music. All right. We're starting off. I got another one of these notepads. You see how many notepads your boys got? Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. How many notepads? That's all the segments of the show today. I like to be prepared. If you're not prepared, prepare to fail, as they say. All right. So, making it in at number 10 on my quarterback list is, and this was a toss-up. I could have had, as it always is at number 10, because you got the guys who are trying to make it into that last spot on the list. But Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers is my quarterback at number 10. Now, it could have easily been, I'm not going to say. I'll actually go back over it, and I can tell you kind of my thoughts at the end, who the contenders were for different spots where to get on the list who missed out. But, yeah, look, Jordan Love obviously has missed some games this season. He's played 8 games in total over the year. But, so just give you his win-loss record. Jordan Love this season in his 8 games that he has played is 5-3. So that's a 62.5% winning percentage. Where is he in this list? He is in completions. Where do I have him in the completions list? He's 18th overall in completions, 160 completions this year. His completion percentage is 62.3, which again is ranked 26 overall out of 32 in starters in the NFL. Again, some of the passing yards. I went with, for some of these lists, I actually went with per game. So I went with completions per game in terms of the ranking and how I did it. That way it evens out, because some teams have been on a bye, some have not. Some of the quarterbacks miss sometimes through injury. So I'm trying to put it on a per game basis to judge performance really, who has played well this season. So I actually have Jordan Love, in terms of passing yard, is top 6 in terms of passing yards per game. He averages 260.125. That puts him ahead of the likes of Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff even, who's had a great season. So yeah, he's top 6 in passing yards. Passing TDs, he's also top 6 in passing TDs per game. He averages 2 passing touchdowns per game. Where is he? So in terms of taking care of the football, so Jordan Love actually averages about 1.4 turnovers per game, which puts him 29th. So 29th on the list, that's 29th the best of taking care of. So he's actually 4th amongst quarterbacks in the most turnovers per game, which is not good. Passer rating, though, where is he? He is at Jordan Love, 90.6 passer rating for the season. That's 18th overall amongst the 32 starter quarterbacks in the NFL. And yeah, total yards, 7th. That total yards is a stat I've put in rushing and passing, so complete yards. And in TDs, he's number 9 overall in TDs per game. Like same, 6 TDs per game. 2 TDs per game, excuse me. So yeah, Jordan Love's at number 10. Look, the Packers, it's about reflective of where the Packers are well in the season. You'll see they've been in my number 10 spot in the last couple weeks. So look, Jordan Love, you'll see who I put him ahead of and who missed the list overall. But once you actually understand why certain people are where they are, it kind of makes sense. I've tried to take the controversy out of this. I've tried to take my opinion out of this. This is purely stats. There's a little bit opinion in there at the final ending, but you know what else can you do? Let's go. Number 9 on my quarterbacks list is Kirk Cousins of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, once again, Kirko, he's 10th best statistically amongst all starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Yes. That's 9th best. Sorry. So that's where he is. So it actually that's basically the idea. So we're going to run through again the record. Kirk Cousins starting quarterback this year, 6-5, 54.5% win percentage. So it's just a bit above 500. But the stats is where the reason why Kirk gets himself onto the list. He's number 9 in completions per game. Completion percentage. Kirk Cousins is number 10. Completion percentage, 68.1% completions. Passing yards. Number 8 in passing yards. 255 for Kirk Cousins. Passing TDs. Kirko, number 10. See, he hasn't fallen out of the top 10 in any of these lists. This is why Kirk Cousins is so underrated. But he just doesn't get it done in the playoffs, does he? Look, Kirk Cousins. Okay, well, he's actually in turnovers. Again, he's 11th. 11th worst. So 21st overall on the list. So he does turn the ball over a lot. Overall, 11 turnovers, which is average of 1 per game. Passer rating for Kirk Cousins, number 13, 96.6. So yeah, look, I think we're gonna start. I think this is kind of like we do that kind of like the mountain of quarterback mountain, right? And this is the base of my mountain in terms of top 10. So you kind of got Jordan Love, Kirk Cousins in the next 2, and that's after that. That's when you really start to, get into the elite of the elite on my list. But these 4 are kind of like on the same tier. And the next person on this tier, Baker Mayfield, in at number 8, Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback, obviously. And look, Baker statistically, I just got to tell you, and I was shocked. Sometimes I don't look into this stuff, the stats as much. I'm not overall, statistically, Baker Mayfield is top 4 in the NFL. If you average around all his things. So he ranks, I'm just going to quicken up. I'm just going to give you the rankings. He ranks 4th amongst all QBs in completion per game. 3rd amongst all QBs in completion percentage. The 3rd most accurate QB in the NFL. Baker Mayfield, that's right. Passing yards, 9th overall. 2nd in passing touchdowns in the NFL, Baker Mayfield. 11th. So when I say, okay, the turnovers one is exciting. So when I say first in turnovers, I don't mean you've done the most turnovers. I mean you've taken care of the ball the best, right? So 11th least turnovers amongst quarterbacks. So that includes interceptions and fumbles. Fumbles lost. Passer rating, 5th best passer rating in the NFL. 6th best in total yards, and he's the number 1 quarterback in total touchdowns. No QB in the NFL has more touchdowns this season than Baker Mayfield. Question is, why do you say I have him down here at number 8? And look, it's got to do with the wins-lost record. And I think this guy, at the moment, what is the record of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? As I always have on all my lists and stuff. Buccaneers record. I should know this. My list is usually on my phone, but I use my phone to record. They're 4-6. So yeah, under 500 record. Again, his record as a starter, I didn't even really this year. Again, 4-6. I could have said that easier. So 40% winning percentage, which is why he's down around 8. But the stats, Baker has been great on the stats, which lift him up into the top 8. At number 7, again, at the base of my quarterback mountain, my top 10 quarterback mountain, Brock Purdy. That's right. I always, I'm famous at this point for being a bit of a Brock Purdy hater. A Brock Purdy hater. I actually, just to be honest, I want to try to get myself off of that Brock Purdy hater list, because the more and more I look at these statistics, and the more I notice how harsh I am being on Brock, I will be 100% admitted to you right now. I still think he's an average Joe, but you can't argue with the stats. And then, so for Brock Purdy this season, he is 8th best statistical quarterback in the NFL. Of course, he's at 500 record-wise, which keeps him at the base of this list. So, yeah. He's actually so 16th in per completions per game. So he doesn't really. He's about middle of the pack when it comes to maybe. Generally, completions is that's why I go completions per game, because it's an interesting thing. Like if a quarterback throws more than he runs, then obviously he's going to have more completions because he's thrown more balls. So Brock Purdy obviously is in part of a balanced Kyle Shanahan offense. So he's probably asked to middle of the pack, probably got a good balance of when they throw and when they pass, when they run, which is what the 49ers do. So that makes sense. He's 15th, though, in completion percentage. So that, regardless, is, again, pretty average completion percentage, but 5th in yards overall, passing yards per game. And what is that specifically for Brock Purdy? That's 261.3 passing yards per game. And that's with many weapons, obviously most of the weapons missing this season. 18th amongst quarterbacks in touchdowns per game. 13th overall in taking care of the football. So that's actually numbers have dropped from last year. And I've noticed, look, the amount of fumbles Brock Purdy has this year, I believe, I wrote down my turnovers list. Brock Purdy has fumbled the ball twice, thrown 8 picks. So 10 turnovers overall, which is 1 turnover a game. Which again, that's a big thing. But 13th best taking care of the ball still. Passer rating 14th among quarterbacks. So again, very middle of the pack in terms of passer rating, which of course takes everything into account into one statistic. I think it's probably my number one most important quarterback stat for me is passer rating. Touchdown and wins. That's where I always hang my hat on when it comes to this stuff, which is why QB wins plays a huge part on why I have this list. So again, 5th in total yards, 10th in total touchdowns amongst quarterbacks. So yeah, Brock Purdy, 500 mediocrity. I have Brock Purdy at number 7 on the list. But look, before I finish off on Brock Purdy, I will say he's hung in there a bit without the weapons. I know they're 500, but some of the stats he's putting up, I know in their completion percentage and stuff like that, which tells me, man, when he's not really accurate. He used to tell me how accurate he is. He's actually pretty average. But yeah, look, some of these stats, 5th in yards, man. Look, I think Brock Purdy is definitely better than I say he is. But for some reason, I can never get myself to say it. So I will come out right. I will come out to you guys and be honest with that. I'm not going to be all smug and just sit. I want one thing that I want to base this channel on is being able to be presented with a new amount of information and be able to just tell you what's actually happening rather than speaking from an agenda. And so sometimes maybe I do have an agenda, but when I do, I'm going to tell you I have it. So there's no secret. But yeah, look, Brock Purdy, number 7 on the list. At number 6 on the list, my boy, Jalen Hurts. Talking about a quarterback that's disrespected in the NFL, and I just got to say, he's top 6. And if you got to see who's, and by the way, second level, so you got the 4 Purdy, Mayfield, Cousins, and Love at the base of your mountain if you're doing a mountain. Maybe I'll put up this graphic when I edit this video. Or maybe not. Maybe you'll just see a list. You'll know now as I show you. But I got Brock Purdy, Mayfield, Cousins, and Love at the bottom of the top 10 quarterback mountain, at the base of the mountain. And again, so Hurts and plus another 2 are that little level up overall. Jalen Hurts, yeah, look. No one has more rushing touchdowns by a long shot than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts has got 11 rushing touchdowns. Again, the Hurts stats that elevate him are this, and you would not believe it. So people tell me that Jalen Hurts can't read the field. Then why is he 5th in completion percentage in the NFL? Top 5. Completion percentage. 4th amongst QB wins. That's the stat that Jalen will always have and has had in his entire career. Is QB wins. He wins ball games. That's why it's great, man. Whether you can put up the stats or not, are you able to lead your team to victory? That is something that I want to always stress when it comes to this list. And Jalen always does it. He does. Of course, we had our backslide at the end of last season. And that's the exception. Because since, what was it, the 2-5 start in 2021, since then, beyond the backslide, Jalen Hurts has been wins. And I feel like maybe, I don't know what happened still at the back end of that season, but he's cut back on the horse now and he's back to his old ways. QB wins is an important stat for my man Jalen Hurts. Total touchdowns, 5th overall in total touchdowns. He's got 23 TDs on the season, 12 through the air, 11 on the ground. Look at that disparity. And of course we can say push tush, but you know what? There's a reason why nobody else tries it. Okay? It's a lot harder than you think it is to run over a bunch of linemen. And yeah, it's not easy to do. Total yards in the NFL, he's got 8, and that of course that eighth overall. That of course includes his passing and his running. That's what is important. 7th overall in the NFL in passer rating. Jalen Hurts. Now he is weak in certain areas. 28th in completions. That tells me that the Eagles are running the football a lot, which is true. So 28th. That's bottom 5 in completions amongst starters, and then the rest of them, the below Jalen, you got in that list. You've got Derek Carr, Justin Herbert, crazily enough, Will Levis, and Anthony Richardson are only the quarterbacks who've completed less than Jalen. So that's in the no category for Jalen. But again, I think that's completely part of the scheme. Passing yards, 21st in the NFL. Again, he's always kind of around that 200 ballpark. You don't really get many Jalen Hurts 400 yarders, which, by the way, if you recall, he had a 500 yarder in our Super Bowl season, if I remember. That was amazing. I think that was against the Giants. Passing touchdowns, 22nd overall amongst QBs in passing TDs per game. And 11th best at taking care of the ball. That number has skyrocketed. But for Jalen, it's less about the picks and it's more about the fumble. So he's thrown 5 picks this season, 4 fumbles lost. That is, that is the ugly side to Jalen sometimes. I do say he does struggle to hold. He does fumble the ball a lot, and that's the nature of being a running quarterback. You look at the stats. We'll talk about Lamar Jackson. Oops, come on, you knew that Lamar was high on this list. But you'll see that Lamar Jackson also has 4 fumbles lost on the season. So it's just comes with the territory. So look, Jalen Hurts, I gotta tell you, and I'm gonna make this while we're still on this topic. I do feel, though, however, that Jalen Hurts needs to work a lot harder to win your approval than most quarterbacks. Maybe it's because he plays in Philly and the standard is so high that, like, for instance, Jared Goff throws 5 picks in a game. If that ever happened to Jalen Hurts, oh my God, that guy would get slated. Dan Cilio would never forget it. That is insane. It's like he has to do so much more to gain your respect than everybody else. When he makes a mistake, you guys hammer him for it. My main man, Tone DeShields, made a tweet about this earlier in the week. I'm actually going to pull it up. I'm gonna quote Tone. He made and this was a real one, and this was a few of these tweets about Jalen, because I just absolutely was like, amen, brother. Where are we at? Let's go. All right. Tone wrote this. I'm not going to say this. Take credit for this. Tone wrote this. I'm convinced Jalen Hurts is the only quarterback in the NFL that has to play perfect every damn game in order to get the slightest bit of respect. I absolutely agree with that. Jalen Hurts isn't the most talented. He is not the fastest. He doesn't have the strongest arm. Doesn't have elite quarterback vision. His game isn't the sexiest. But guess what? He wins. Last time I checked, this league is about wins, losses, and productions. That me and Tone are on the same page on this. But yeah, look, again, I'm going to close here on Jalen, of course, because I could be on here for days. But Jalen makes plays, man. Jalen can get some stuff out of the pocket on third down or fourth down when you absolutely need those yards. He's going to get those yards for you. I'll just take you back to 6 days ago when he played the Washington Commanders. That fourth down where he had to stretch it and make it. Was it a third down or a fourth down? And he did it by stretching it out, and they had to just when we hadn't scored at all, we kept stalling drives, and he was like, I'm done with this. I still take you back to that Super Bowl performance against Patrick Mahomes 2 years ago. The plays the guy makes, he makes plays. He's beaten one of the boys. Actually, talk about in the last year or so, he's beaten 2. He is undefeated since the start of last season against all of the top 5 quarterbacks on my list, with the other one to come. So he's played 4 of the 5, one of whom he is going to play later on in the season. And he's undefeated. He is 4-0 against those 4 since the beginning of last season, Jalen Hurts. Or really since the uptick of his career. Now, one of them, Patrick Mahomes, he's lost to in the Super Bowl. But yeah, that has been Jalen Hurts, and I just gotta say, man, he gets through so much shade, and I always back him. He is my boy. There's no doubt about it. But I think I'm fair having him number 6 on the list, and I believe when you see my top 5, it's probably where he shakes out to be. But on the same platform on the mountain, sitting at number 5, the top 5 quarterbacks, Anton's quarterbacks list, is Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. Now, another quarterback who's gotten so much shade, although all he does is win, man. And look, Jared Goff had a perfect game earlier this year. Actually, he's had 2 perfect games in his career. Listen to this. Jared Goff, 3rd best statistical quarterback in the NFL. Now, the reason why he's 5 on my list, I'll just say it plainly, is because those top 4 guys that you're about to hear are the elite of the elite. And they've got resumes and years of consistency. But let me read through the Jared Goff numbers quickly. He is 2nd amongst quarterbacks in completion percentage, trailing only Tua. I'll make him a mention in completion percentage, the 2nd most accurate quarterback in the NFL. And by the way, Tua has played only 6 games. Jared Goff has played 10. So he's more accurate in a larger sample size. Passing yards, 10th overall in passing yards. 5th in passing TDs. Same as Jalen in terms of taking care of the football. And Baker as well is in that same number. 2nd in passer rating, only behind Lamar Jackson in the NFL. 7th in total touchdowns and 17th, which is average middle of the pack in total yards, which kind of shocks me, honestly. But he's 10th in passing yards. It's just because he's not so much of a mobile quarterback. He's a pocket quarterback. But look, Jared Goff has the Lions absolutely dominating. I thought he's taken his game to the next level. I do not think he's a civilian. I think that's a ridiculous thing for Nick Wright to say. I think that Brock Purdy is a civilian, literally, the last pick of the draft. Let's not forget that Jared Goff was the number 1 overall pick. Best quarterback in his draft class. And need I remind you, in his draft class included Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz. So, and Mitch Trubisky. No, was it? No, not Mitch Trubisky. It was Dak Prescott and Carson Wentz. Mitch Trubisky was the next year, I believe. But yeah, look, Jared Goff has got the Lions flying high. You will see again where we have them in our power rankings. You know that I've consistently had them at the top part of my list every single week. And Jared Goff is having his best season. Absolutely having his best season. Big ups to Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions. He is number 5, top 5 on the list. And at number 4, before we move on to this top of the mountain, I've got Joe Burrow. And now, of course, you're like, Joe Burrow? What? I thought quarterback wins was an important stats for you. He is not winning. As a starter this season, Joe Burrow is 4-7. So only 36.4% winning percentage. And I think that's the reason why I have him number 4, because I'm about to explain to you why he's even up here in the first place, to detract from that fact I'm about to give you, is because he isn't winning football games. And people can blame it on the defense, you can blame it on the kicker, but your quarterback has got to put you in position to win the game. And he's not making the play that puts them over the top and wins the football game. They had plenty of opportunities to win that game the other day on Sunday Night Football against Justin Herbert. Plenty opportunities to beat the Ravens both times that they played. Plenty of opportunities to beat the Chiefs. Amongst others in this conversation, yeah. So it's just, he's not, it's one of the greatest, what am I going to say, mysteries to me. One of the most puzzling case studies is Joe Burrow of this season, because He is first overall in quarterback stats, and yet his team is 4-7. He has had the best season statistically in the NFL of any quarterback. Listen to these stats, right? Third overall in completions. Third overall in passing yards. First overall in passing touchdowns. The third best in terms of turnovers, taking care of the football. The third best passer rating. Fourth in total yards. Second in total TDs. And the only thing that he falls outside the top 10 in is completion percentage, where he misses the top 10 by 1. He's at 11th in completion percentage. Joe Burrow has had the best statistical season of any quarterback this year, which is why I put him ahead of Jared Goff, even though, like, you put Joe Burrow on the Detroit Lions and he's the MVP favorite. That's kind of the way I see it, right? But it's the wins that keeps him out of the top 3, despite him having a better season than any quarterback on this list. Joey B has been a one-man show at times. And he does got some good weapons, but the defense does let him down. The special teams does let him down. But I still don't give him excuses, because as the quarterback, you've got to do stuff that wins the ball game. Jalen Hurts also had his quick kicker miss 2 big kicks in the second half. And I didn't use that as an excuse. He still won the football game. And he just got to make plays. That's why quarterback wins is my most important stat. Quarterback wins and quarterback passer rating. Passer rating and quarterback wins are my most favorite quarterback stats. Because it's about winning, man. It's about winning in this league. Quarterback, more than any other position on the field. You're the leader of men. I'm much harsher when it comes to QBs. You've heard me talk about quarterbacks. And of course, I know I give Jalen, but I think Jalen's a different story. I think Jalen does great, and he just gets trashed for it. Where Joe Burrow, man, he needs to win. He needs to win games, and he's not going to make the playoffs this year. But yeah, he is number 4 on the list. Number 3 on the list. Now, this is interesting. This is sort of like amongst the elite of the elite. At number 3, I have Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, Lamar, the show. Up till last week, he was the MVP favorite. And you know what? I said in my reels that, how is he the MVP if he's not winning his division? That's a fact, and that's a fact that can be said now. I think beforehand they hadn't played Pittsburgh yet, so you couldn't really have said that, but that's why he's no longer the MVP favorite. But after Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson is second overall in quarterback stats. 6th best winning percentage amongst QBs. All right, so his completions is a lower tier. Again, like many running quarterbacks, 22nd overall in completions per game. 12th in completion percentage, so not quite top 10 in passing accuracy, similar to Joe. But he is 4th in passing yards overall this season, 4th in passing TDs, 7th in turnovers. So just like Jalen, he fumbles the ball a lot. It comes with the territory, but only 3 picks this year. He's taking care of the football in general. He just keeps cleaning up the fumbles, which is hard to do when you're a running quarterback, because you're more vulnerable to it. 1st overall in the NFL in passer rating. In fact, it's not even close. He gains a 5-point edge over Jared Goff in passer rating. Right. 2nd overall in total yards. So that's, the show. Lamar Jackson likes to call him the show, because he is just so fun to watch. But yeah, he's the running, the throwing, puts him 2nd overall in total yards and 3rd overall in total touchdowns this season. Lamar Jackson, absolute stud. I think he was the MVP last year. He's had actually probably better stats so far this year as well. If you recall, it wasn't until later on in the year that Lamar really started picking up steam for that MVP. People were talking about Christian McCaffrey at this time. People were talking about Brock Purdy at this time. People were talking about Patrick Mahomes. But it was really Lamar who came off at the... People talking about Dak for I was an MVP last year. But it was Lamar who came on in the end. But now, I think Lamar has been leading the race a long way. But now, the man who I have at the top of this tree is my MVP favorite. As we say. Now, moving on. Second in the list. Still, not at the peak of the mountain. Just, he has been on the peak of the mountain up until now. And that is Patrick Mahomes. Now, 3 Super Bowls will get you there, regardless of the fact that overall Patrick Mahomes is only the 5th. This is by his standards. So when I say, oh, it's his worst statistical season, like, when I say that, it's like, by his standards, he's the 5th best overall statistical quarterback in the NFL. Big thing, he's turned the ball over. He's turned the ball over a lot. He actually leads the NFL in interceptions, Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, that's crazy. He is second overall in QB, actually tied for first, really. And the thing is, I say second is because Russell Wilson is undefeated. So actually, Russell Wilson number 1. QB wins isn't the team wins; it's how winning percentage within their starts. 5th overall in completions, 4th overall in completion percentage. Mahomes still as accurate as ever, but 13th in the passing yards. That's got to be because of the lack of weapons, to be honest. 12th overall in passing TDs. Can you believe that? Patrick Mahomes, 12th in passing TDs? And again, as I mentioned, the turnovers are bad. 19th in passer rating. 10th in total yards. And 14th in total touchdowns. 14th. So look, Mahomes is still top 2 because Mahomes is Mahomes. And I don't want to ever get too carried away with that. This man will always make you look a fool. Do not doubt this man. I call it the Tom Brady rule. Even when you think he's struggling in the year, he still ends up holding that damn Lombardi at the end of the day. He just does. And I had to scale him back a little bit. Of course, this is my first quarterback list I've ever done, but in my head, I kind of have to scale him back a little bit to number 2 overall. Although the stats would probably tell you he's probably 5 overall, but the wins, man, up until he hasn't lost a game until this week since Christmas. And by the way, that's not an understatement because Christmas is only a month away, ladies and gentlemen. Just over a month away from now, the next Christmas. Dude doesn't do a whole lot of losing. And quarterback wins is important. But guys, at the top of the mountain, we call it Mount Allen. Josh Allen from the Buffalo Bills, number 1 overall, guys. He has been absolutely spectacular this season. One-man band. Now, you could say overall he's 6th in QB stats, but you have to take everything into account. Look at the opponents that he's had to take on this season. Look at what he has to work with in terms of his weapons. His O-line is not that great. And of course, he has taken down a big time his amount of QB attempts, which is why he's 20th in completions. But he's 3rd in quarterback wins overall. His accuracy is still an issue. He's 19th overall. 17th in passing yards. 9th best in passing TDs. Taking care of the football. He's number 7 in terms of least amount of turnovers this season. The 12th best in passer rating. 9th in total yards. 6th in total TDs. And 7th. Yeah. Anyway. So look, the stats don't jump off the page that much for Josh Allen. But the eye test, ladies and gentlemen. This dude is Superman. He's got the Superman cape. He just beat Patrick Mahomes head-to-head. And, yeah, Josh Allen for me is my MVP favorite. Now, of course, you're going to listen to what I just said about Josh Allen. It's like, how is he the number 1 quarterback? He's the 6th best statistical quarterback in the NFL, but man, it's undeniable. It's undeniable. It's just, sometimes you just can't write it all down on a stat sheet sometimes. But third overall in quarterback wins, the most important quarterback stat there is. Josh Allen is the top of the quarterback list. Let's recap again. And we'll mention some notable absences. So look, number 1, I have Josh Allen. Number 2, I have Patrick Mahomes. Number 3, I've got Lamar Jackson. Number 4, I've got Joe Burrow. Number 5, I've got Jared Goff. Number 6, Jalen Hurts. Number 7, Brock Purdy. Number 8, Baker Mayfield. Number 9, Kirk Cousins. And number 10, Jordan Love. Now, the guys are going to be like, why isn't he on the list? Obviously, Justin Herbert. Look, man, Justin Herbert, I thought for sure that he'd be in this list before I constructed it. Justin Herbert is 16th overall, middle of the pack, statistically as a quarterback in the NFL this season. He is 30th in completions. So outside of Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, every other starting quarterback has completed more footballs than him. Look, I think he's performing well, which is interesting, but I can't. He's too far away from the top of the list statistics with his stats this year for me to put him there. Another guy, Kyler Murray, 18th overall in quarterback stats. I thought he's been having a good season. I'm wrong. Matthew Stafford. A lot of people, Nick Wright would have Matthew Stafford in his top 10. He actually put him ahead of Jared Goff in his quarterback mountain. Again, 15th overall. Geno, 14th overall. Geno has been great in some statistics. Missed the list. Aaron Rodgers, obviously, come on, he can't be on the list. And Russell Wilson, who's number 1 in quarterback wins, did not make the list, but that's because he started 4 starts this season, so he's a bit. And Jaden Daniels, who's been incredible this year, as well as Bo Nix. Those guys are still somewhat not far off this list, but they didn't quite make it onto the list. So that kind of, and Tua, by the way. Tua just missed the list. He was at number 11 overall on this list. It was a toss between him and Jordan Love. At the end of the day, Tua's only started 6 games this season. I just felt like but he's been really good in those six starts that he has had. But anyway, that's my quarterback list segment, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Kind of. We are 46 minutes into this video just talking about quarterbacks. I told you, this is a long show, this one today. This is a big one, but it's a fun one. It's a very fun show that we have had today. And that has been our quarterback list. We will move on, of course. Let's move this show along, shall we? I did not realize it would take me 46 minutes to do my quarterback list. So it has slowed this show down, but it was a fun activity to do with you guys all. But let's get through this, and then let's get to our top 10 teams list, and we know how those roll through anyway. So let's go. Anton's picks, guys. Let's talk about it again. A very solid, by the way, I actually compiled overall my Anton's picks for the season, which is 110 wins and 54 losses overall in my picks, which is around 67 point something percent. So just over 2/3 correct. So I reckon that's pretty good. Considering we're 11 weeks of picking into the season, for me to be 66%, that's like a quarterback completion percentage, right? You know what I mean? We're just talking about quarterbacks list. My completion percentage is around 2/3, which is like, where would that put me amongst quarterbacks now that I've got that list? That would put me like, not as really good as I might think. Like, somewhere around the Joe Burrow completion percentage era, Lamar Jackson completion percentage era. So, yeah, 10-4. That's always like to highlight the ones that I got wrong, and we'll go in through some of these games quicker now. I was going to go a bit more into depth, but we spent so much time on that quarterback list, guys. I really wanted to, do that right. So yeah, again, as I said, when I made this pick, I could easily be wrong in it, and I was. The Pittsburgh Steelers beat the Baltimore Ravens. Now, I could have easily gone with the Steelers on this, and I probably should have, considering that if you've been watching this show, I've been so big on the Steelers, and I've been ranking them ahead of the Ravens. And even after I made the pick on the fly. Like, I had it as like a toss-up. I'll make it when I record. And I was like, the Ravens. I got stuck in to that Ravens favoritism. But I have to deal with the repercussions. That is a loss for me. The other one, the Falcons and the Broncos. We have to have a real conversation about the Broncos now. I've truly underestimated this team at the start of the year. Bo Nix has been firing, man. That 38-6. What a demolition job. The Falcons looking bad, man. I had them in my top 10 list only. I had them. What, did I take them off the list last week? Yeah. Like, man, that's crazy. That was a demolition job. The Broncos are looking good, man. I need to really gotta give them a little bit more respect when I pick. I really do. The Seahawks and the 49ers. Now, this one, I actually went with the Niners. I think this was a surprise. I don't think many people got this one right anyway. But Geno Smith and the Seahawks kept their season alive. That was a huge touchdown in the end from Geno Smith to win it over the 49ers and the Niners. 500, man. 0-2 in the division. Are they even going to make the playoffs at this point? Look, they can very much have what they have 7 games remaining, go 7-0. I would not put it past them to finish 12-5. But at this point, 10 games of the season, I'm like, damn, the 49ers? You gotta have to wake up and smell the coffee. They don't getting enough back. If my Eagles were 5-5 right now, we would be going through hell. Angelo Cataldi would like, see, you guys only got 5 wins. That's not how it works here. But anyway, look, and the Chargers, the Bengals, again, another toss-up. I went with the Bengals. This is kind of like my last hurrah on Bengals picks. I felt like they had to win this. They're going to find a way to do it. Joey Burrow, best quarterback in the NFL this season statistically. And he just couldn't do it. Although it was such a good game, that one on Sunday night. But yeah, 10-4 on my picks this week. Just quickly to recap some games before we head on to the list. The Miami Dolphins are back, guys. I thought Tua was incredible. He had threw 3 TDs, nearly 300 yards in the air. Tua was really good, man. Tyreek Hill looking better as well. Devon Achane, man, I like Devon Achane. But look, I had the Dolphins as the 4th best ranked team coming into the season. They certainly played that way on Sunday. Let's see if they can make a big run again. They also have 7 games to go in this season. Can they go on a massive run to boost that record, maybe get themselves into my list somehow, get themselves into the playoffs? I had this team picked to win the AFC East. Now, that's not happening, regardless of what run they're going on. The Buffalo Bills are just so good. But yeah, I'm happy to see the Dolphins winning. And again, the Rams and the Patriots, they played a really tight game. The Rams are the next opponent for the Eagles. Yeah, look, Matt Stafford was really good in that game. Drake May actually thought was really good in the game. It was a pretty fun game to watch. I had it kind of on in the background while I was following the Ravens game. It was in the NFL red zone. But yeah, some of those throws, man. That Cooper Kupp touchdown. That throw, the throw of Puka was really good. The catch by Puka for a touchdown was really good. The one where the TD where the camera guy got bowled over, that was nuts. But yeah, at the end, the Pats had a chance to win it, by the way. But Cam Kitchen does pick it off. Rams are at 500. They're still only a game out of the lead in the NFC West. There's a big measuring stick game coming up against my Birds this weekend. That'll be an interesting one to watch. But yeah, that's some of the other results that went around. But let's talk about off the list this week. Let's do it. Off the list this week. The not so scary Washington Commanders are off the list. Now you see we're just getting one team off kind of per week now. The list is starting to be a lot more solidified. But I still think there are some twists to come. I still think there are teams that are off the list that are going to make a push. A lot of people have, some teams like the Arizona Cardinals and whatnot in their lists and stuff. I do not. Spoiler. But yeah, the Washington Commanders are off the list here. And look, they played the Eagles on that Thursday night game. They looked good at the beginning, but I always kind of felt like the Eagles were going to come back into this game. They were going to do it, and that Eagles defense really held that Commanders offense in check really until the end. Jaden Daniels is starting to look like a rookie again. I think he's starting to get that rookie wall in his season. I'd say him and Bo Nix now are starting to... that Bo Nix has really closed that gap on him in terms of Rookie of the Year stuff. I was just talking about how good Bo was doing this week in contrast. But look, the Commanders, I think, were really good early. But now I think the Eagles game was a big barometer for where they are. And I still think they're nowhere near the Eagles in terms of quality. I don't think the Commanders are going to win the division in the end. I think they'll make the playoffs, though. They're in a good position to. But yeah, at the moment, they are not a top 10 team. And you will see why, because that top 10 list is so close. And shall we get into our top 10 list, guys? Cue the NFL music. At number 10, back onto the list after destroying the Dallas Cowboys this week, are the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud. Joe Mixon, by the way, I should say. Monster game. He is so good, man. That touchdown he scored to start off with sent out a statement. I thought from the beginning, they basically almost scored from their first play from scrimmage with Nico Collins. That play was brought back for a penalty. But man, the Texans came out. They needed that. That was a get-right game for them against an ailing Dallas Cowboys. And yeah, look, they're definitely a top 10 team in the NFL. Again, a lot of people put Arizona in there. I still see some people holding on to the Commanders. The Broncos, people haven't put Broncos in top 10 as much. I haven't really seen it. But, they're a candidate maybe for being on here. But I think the Houston Texans, given what they've been throughout the year, I think they've been more consistent than those teams from start till about now. They hit a bit of a slump, but that was a big one to get out of. And I remember they almost beat the Lions last week. They almost beat the Lions. Like, that's massive, man. And yeah, they're number 10 on the list. At number 9, moving one spot up from last week, the Green Bay Packers. And yes, they squeaked by the Chicago Bears, similarly to what it was like with the Chiefs last week with the Broncos. But look, I think Jordan Love looked really good, comfy at certain times of this game. I like the gunslinger in him that he's kind of got there, and I probably should have talked more about quarterback attributes when I was doing my quarterback list. But yeah, there's a bit of a Brett Favre element to him. He likes to sling it all over the field. He's more Brett Favre than he is Aaron, I'd say. And yeah, but at the end of the day, I think the Packers did deserve to win the game overall. But look, I gotta say a special mention to the Bears. They looked much better. This was an entertaining game. This Bears-Packers game, it was. It came out to the very, very last play. And heroics there on the special teams defensive side of the football for the Green Bay Packers. But they moved up the list now. They've been at 10 for a while now. Now they are up at number 9. At number 8, also moving up one spot after they win on Sunday Night Football, the Los Angeles Chargers. And that was a big game that they won, as I mentioned, on Sunday Night Football over the Cincinnati Bengals. And if you just went off that first half, the Chargers had it clicking across the board. Defense, offense. Justin Herbert, again, not in my top 10 list of quarterbacks, but I still think Harbaugh has been turning Herbert into a quarterback that can win rather than a quarterback that compiles stats. I think that's kind of the thing when I talk about, we'll go back to this quarterback thing again, but, we're talking about guys like Jalen Hurts, guys like Josh Allen. Those guys have had to dial back their passing attempts so that they can win. It's not all about huge stats. Look, Joe Burrow, he leads NFL in all these categories, but Justin beat him. And the Bengals are just not winning football games. But look, defense is a staple. I've been talking about the Chargers defense. This time around, though, they had a bit of a slump, but they stood up tall at the end where they needed. The Chargers are now at number 8 on the list. That's their highest position all season, by the way, special mention. At number 7, you're going to kill me for this, but it's the Baltimore Ravens, down 1 spot from last week. I know I said what I said about them being better than the Vikings and the Commanders, which I put them at number 6, but then they've now, I think this game against the Steelers told me a lot about the Ravens. As talented as they are, really on both sides of the ball, outside of the secondary, the candidates for Offensive Player of the Year in Derrick Henry, the candidate for MVP in Lamar Jackson, they still are fundamentally flawed. I think sometimes that the IQ overall of this team isn't really high in terms of special situations, strategy-wise. On the offense, I think they miss Greg Roman. You can see the impact that he's making out there in LA. Obviously, they hadn't had Greg Roman for a couple of years now. But, look, sometimes they're so talented, they're so fun to watch, but they get them and they score a lot of points. But they get themselves into certain situations, situational football, and they absolutely melt. Like, what is Lamar doing with that toss to try to kick? That 2-point conversion is the ball game there. And the fact that they couldn't have gotten a better call, at least pound it in with Derrick Henry or something. I feel like I'm just echoing what everybody else has been saying this week about the Ravens. But yeah, look, the Ravens, they're at number 7, man. They're 7-4, man. I can't put them ahead of the team I have at number 6 here anymore because the disparity between the record is so much different. And number 6, the Minnesota Vikings. I should say that. Moving up 2 spots there at 8 last week. My apologies to Kevin O'Connell, to Sam Darnold, to Justin Jefferson, and that Vikings defense. For what I said about you guys last week, I was just underwhelmed by that Jaguars game. But you turned it back on this week for the Tennessee Titans. And look, they're 8-2. It's the same. Every team on this list has got a top 6, all have 2 losses or better. 8-2, man, that has to be respected. Every team that goes up against this defense, we've made this point in the past, they all talk about how it's so hard to play against this Vikings defense. It was hard for the Titans, with the exception of that massive, 99-yard touchdown by Westbrook-Ikhine. But take that out, and the Titans have 6 points in the game. So look, the Minnesota Vikings have been really, really good this year. We're at week 11 here, and they're still hanging around. We've all been kind of disrespecting them, even myself included. When is this team going to drop off? That could still happen with 7 games to go, but you got to give them their respect, man. We're here at the double-digit weeks of the season, week 11, and they are still, with 8 wins on the year, they have guaranteed themselves at least a winning season this year, right? No, they need one more for that. But yeah, I'm forgetting that there are now 17 games in the season. But yeah, the Minnesota Vikings are number 6 on the list. Now it's time for my top 5 power rankings. Anton, Hot Sports power rankings. Let us go. At number 5, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's stay put as it is. Now, I gotta say, pause before I talk about the Steelers. We mentioned how big this week 11 was. And I did a long thought about the list. I didn't want to be too reactionary. I wanted to take the whole season into context. I gotta take who I gotta back in the playoffs into context, by the way, when I say this list. So the Steelers stay at 5. They don't move. And look, a huge win. We got to talk about it over the Baltimore Ravens. And yes, they do have deficiencies offensively. As good as Russell Wilson has been, number one in QB wins this season. He's been good since he's come in. Old Russ, he's been cooking. Not so much in this game. That pick he threw was got to be one of the worst throws I've seen all season on the back part of that. Didn't mention it in my reel because it's about celebrating wins. But look, the Steelers defense, man, again, oh my God, another week of me just drooling all over the Steelers defense. This Ravens defense was scoring for fun, man. And up until the last couple minutes, 2-minute warning for sure, the Ravens only had 10 points on the board, man. They kept, you can criticize Lamar and Derrick Henry all you want in this game. End of the day, they went up against this Steelers defense. They're going to make a lot of players look worse than they've been all year. And Eagles, we still got to play them in the battle for Pennsylvania later on in the year. And I want to know what the stats are for Saquon and AJ and Jalen in that game. Is it going to be under? If I was a betting man, I'd probably go under when you go against the Steelers defense. This is how much I respect them. The facts that I'm willing to even tell you that my Eagles players will go under in statistics when we play the Steelers this week. I mean, not this week. Like 3 weeks from now? 3-4 weeks from now. I think we got the Rams, the Ravens, the Panthers, then the Steelers. So about a month. But we shall see what that is. But yeah, man, the Steelers deserve all the praise that they should get. They are better than the Ravens. They beat them head to head. They are top 5. I trust them more to do good in the playoffs than the Ravens. The Ravens are either going to win the Super Bowl as I predicted, or they're going to be a first round knockout. The Steelers, for me, Mike Tomlin, they're so well coached. I see them a lot more solid. I just got to be honest. I see them being a lot more solid and having a chance to maybe out-coach and out-battle some of the AFC's elite. I would not be surprised. Look, I have them at the third best team in the AFC, but I wouldn't be surprised if you see them in a championship game. Now, Super Bowl, I think, is a bit of a stretch. I don't know if they have a Super Bowl ceiling. Now, clip me up at this point if they do. But, man, I just trust them more than a lot of these other teams in the AFC when it comes to beating those favorites at the top of the tree in the AFC. At number 4, staying as they were last week. I was hoping I could maybe move them up after they won on Thursday because then you had the other games to go. The list, but they stay at number 4, stay on the thumbnail, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, statement win on Thursday against the Washington Commanders. Statement performance by Saquon Barkley. One thing cannot be understated here, and in my mishmash of all the brain throw up that I do when I talk about the Eagles, especially post-match, and when I get into it with Xander, and when I get into it on my reels, man, the fact that the Eagles break it open at the end like that, some of the best teams just know when it gets tight, they can break open a ball game, like a piñata. Like, it was so tight, so tight, so tight. In fact, the Commanders were leading almost throughout the entire game. But the Eagles just broke it open like a piñata in that fourth quarter. That is how you take care. That's fourth quarter football. And the Eagles, man, look at Saquon, 2 big TDs at the end. That pick by Blankenship. By the way, Jaden Daniels is what? How many? I got my QB list again. It's insane the amount of Jaden Daniels has this season. The least amount of turnovers of any quarterback. 3 picks. That was his third. The pick of Reed Blankenship. Hasn't fumbled at all. So quarterback didn't turn over the ball over. They got Reed Blankenship got the pick. Jalen got the touchdown as well. The Eagles, they cemented themselves here. We were beating nobody. Well, the Commanders were somebody until now. Again, they're now off my list and a lot of people's lists. But a week ago, the Commanders were somebody. A lot of people were backing them to win the game. It was a toss-up, right? But the Eagles took care of business at home, and we are maintaining ourselves, feeling safe I think, in the top 4 of this list. Now, we're getting into our top 3. And this is where it gets interesting. I said I have to rethink it. And after a lot of thinking, I'm actually going to read for you my top 3. And then we're going to go back and break it down. So at number 3, the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, who beat Patrick Mahomes. At number 2, the Detroit Lions absolutely smoked 52-6 the Jacksonville Jaguars at home. They're relentless. They're going for it on 4th down with massive leads and still scoring touchdowns. And at number 1, still, was my chance. A lot of people overreacted to it. They've taken this result and they've used it as an excuse to move the Kansas City Chiefs down the list after much tossing and turning and switching. And trust me, I've tried to switch these 3 around. I got the Kansas City Chiefs at number 1. Now let's go back and let's do this puzzle here before we end this show. This is well easily the longest NFL show we've had all year. Of course, I think you can expect that given all that occurred. And I needed to do my QB list as well anyway. But let's break it down for you, right? So, the Buffalo Bills beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and yet they're still at 1. That 3. You're going to answer that question. That's an obvious question to ask. I will answer. And the other question you ask is, the Lions and the Chiefs have the same record. The Lions statistically is so much better than the Chiefs. Why did you put the Lions at number 1? That's the other question. And the question is why didn't you take the opportunity to move the Chiefs down? As well as the Lions-Bills question, which the 2 of them we're going to play later on in the year. So again, there's so much more to this story to be told. And that's going to be interesting to kind of complete the picture here on this season. But here's the answer to all those questions. The first question, the Bills beat the Chiefs, why didn't I move them up? So here's the way I kind of look at it. And it's kind of the way I look at it in the playoffs. And yes, the Bills beat the Chiefs every year in the regular season, home or away, recently. I think they've won the last 3 matchups. I expected the Bills to win this game because they were at home. The Chiefs were playing with fire, and they were due a loss, and it was just the perfect storm here. I do think it was a statement by the Bills. Number 3 is no slight. Top 3 is a huge honor. But there's so much more to go through. Like 9-1, 9-2. What's the difference? The Bills have not had a bye week, and in that extra game they played, they lost. Those 2 losses, of course, included they absolutely got thumped by the Ravens, which we mentioned in the past show when that happened. That knocked the Bills down the list, right? They lost to the Houston Texans in a game where Josh Allen had terrible game of performance overall. But those are 2 teams that are on this list. So, and the Chiefs' loss has been to the Bills, and the Lions' loss has been to the Buccaneers. But yeah, look, I just think overall, do I still think the Chiefs are better than the Bills? Yes. Do I think they have a better coach? Yes. Do they think they have a better roster? Yes. Do I think they have a better quarterback? Clearly not, because I put Josh Allen at number 1. But there's so many... Again, that's so close, man. Next week I could change my mind. Like, Patrick Mahomes is one of my favorite players in the NFL. Kid you not. He's great. And I want him to beat all of Tom Brady's records. I'm not going to be shy about that. But overall, man, the Chiefs are number 1 still because I need to see them lose more games. And I'm sounding like Nick Wright. This is the first time they've lost in 11 months. You can't just throw away 11 months of good work and knock them down the list because of 1 defeat. I used to say this about the Eagles last year before it all came falling down. Like when we lost to the Jets, because we were 10-1 before the slide. We're gonna lose 1 eventually. It's hard, to be perfect in the NFL. You know, eventually someone was going to get us. That was my mentality, but I got to be consistent on that. I was right on that point. Like, all of a sudden, you're not bad overnight because you lost one ball game. And that's sort of my thing on that. So I think that's why the Chiefs are still number one. The Detroit Lions number two. Why? The last question. Why? If both the Chiefs and the Lions have the same record, and the Lions statistically are better than the Chiefs across the board, what's the issue here? It's, to be honest, I'll be honest. If the Chiefs played the Lions in the Super Bowl, that's a very likely outcome. I mean, my list is 1 versus 2, right? I still would pack the Chiefs to win the game. I still think that Patrick Mahomes is going to have the know-how to win it on that biggest stage. He always has. Andy Reid has had the know-how. They eat, sleep, drink, perfection, greatness. They know exactly what to do. They know exactly how to poop in the morning to win a Super Bowl. They know exactly how to eat to win a Super Bowl. They know how to work out to win a Super Bowl. They know exactly how to make love to their wives to win a Super Bowl. They know. They've been there and done that. And at the end of the day, though, I need to see a slide from Kansas City. Now, look, I gotta tell you, this is the last warning. If the Chiefs do and lose another one, I will talk them off the top. Of course, the next one, luckily for them, is the Carolina Panthers. That's a slam dunk victory. But yeah, let's see. And by the way, the Eagles aren't far off the conversation. Again, the Bills are a bye week away. The Eagles are also, you can question, a bye week away from having the same record as the Bills and being thrown into that conversation. Same with the Steelers. I don't know much about the Vikings because I just think the top 5 are the top 5. I don't know if I could trust the Vikings as much as the top 5. But anyway, that's been my top 5 list, given to you in a little bit different ways. But shall we recap that top 5 list for you before we head out today? At number 1, the Kansas City Chiefs. At number 2, the Detroit Lions. At number 3, the Buffalo Bills. At number 4, the Philadelphia Eagles, my Philadelphia Eagles. At number 5, the Pittsburgh Steelers. At number 6, the Minnesota Vikings. At number 7, the Baltimore Ravens. At number 8, the Los Angeles Chargers. At number 9, the Green Bay Packers. And at number 10, on your program, the Houston Texans. And that has been your top 10 list. It has been a long show. A fun show. Our longest show of the year. I thought I'd try to keep it short and ended up being long. That quarterback list took a long time with it. But it was fun. It was really fun, guys. Let me know, guys, what you think about everything. I did 2 top 10 lists here. Quarterbacks. So what do you think about my quarterbacks list? What do you think about my power rankings for the season, guys? And yeah, look, it's moving along. We're getting closer and closer now towards the playoffs. How many? We got about a couple, 2 to 3 weeks now before we start hitting that last quarter of the season, that final playoff push. And as you can see, everything is coming together, man. I'm so excited for the games to come. Week 12 cannot come soon enough. It actually begins tomorrow. And we will have Anton's picks coming out for you tomorrow as well, guys, or today. Depends on when I get this video to you. And I will see you guys all. Anton out.